Hello, universe. Behind the scenes, as always, my moon in the house of Pisces. I have been studying, oh man, for years at this point, but especially this last year and a half to 2 years, I've been studying the MBTI system, also known as the Myers-Briggs system, in depth, and I've been absolutely captivated by it. And in fact, in just the last couple months, I've found and the whole other layer, the different functions, and we'll get to that, of each type opening itself up and just showing all these beautiful patterns, just like with astrology. And I want to share these exciting discoveries and these perspectives with you. So a little bit about the Myers-Briggs system. It was devised, I don't know exactly when, in the last 100 years or so, by an INFP, and we'll discuss what that means. Lady who I don't remember her name. I researched the history for this video. But in any case, this is a very interesting system that breaks down all of humanity's different psychological proclivities, our different temperaments, our different approaches to life, to 16 different types. And so these 16 different types are the amalgamation of 4 different principles, okay? And if this seems complicated, it's really not. Just like anything, it's a lot to take in at once. It's a whole psychological paradigm. It's like when you look at your astrological chart for the first time, you're just like, holy shit, there's so much here. It's going to take a while to sift through this, let alone to sift through every single planetary placement and every house placement and every planet, etc., etc. So with this, if it seems complicated, don't worry about it. I'll be doing plenty of videos on this as well during this year. This is a very exciting series I want to get going. So each of those 16 different personality types, I'll give you an example. For example, I'm an ENFP, extrovert, intuitor, feeling, perceiver. Now, each of those letters, just like all of the other types, which are also comprised of 4 letters each, you get to those letters off of a polarity. And so you have introvert and extrovert. Now, there's so much to talk about. Now, overall, introvert versus extrovert. Extrovert is getting energy from spending time around other individuals. Introverts are getting energy from spending time alone. Now, just because you're an extrovert, for example, I'm an ENFP, that doesn't mean that you only need to be around other people. Just like an introvert, that doesn't mean you have to only be alone. Indeed, extroverts have, no matter what type, and there's 8 extrovert types, 8 introvert types, no matter what type you are, on either side, you have qualities of the other. For example, and we'll go into this more in detail for each of the types as we go along this year. I'm an ENFP. My first function, we have 4 main functions, okay? All of us, every type has 4 main functions. The dominant, external, or rather extroverted intuition. The auxiliary is internal feeling, introverted feeling, okay? And then we have auxiliary, which is extroverted for me. It would be introverted if you're an introvert. Doesn't matter, we'll get to that stuff. And then inferior, something that we really need to work on, is introvert, introverted sensing. So in any case, my point is this. Just because you are an extrovert in the system, that doesn't mean that, in fact, this system is really beautiful because just like astrology, it's not black and white. And I don't think any psychological system that's black and white is of very much use because we are multicolored fucking rainbow individuals. And so just because we may be extroverted in this sense, we're introverted in that sense, and so on and so forth. And we're trying to find a balance and trying to get it all to work together. So, before we continue, because this is obviously primarily an astrological channel, I have to say the MBTI system is a wonderful system. I find it to be the most useful psychological system after tropical astrology. Tropical astrology is just so goddamn pinpoint accurate for the different mathematical trajectories of our planet Earth in the entirety of the solar system and how all the different astronomical bodies relate to us, that it's kind of hard to overcome it. And I would be delighted if something did overcome it, because that would be even more interesting and blow my mind even more. But I don't think it's going to happen because the tropical astrological system measures our solar system exactly as it is and sees how that impacts us psychologically, which is pretty goddamn in depth. Not just because of the revolution, which is the sun in Gemini, Mercury and whatever, but also because of the rotation of the Earth, which is also measured. And this, to be fair, that's also measured in all astrological systems. But yes, the rotation of the Earth, which then leads to the house system in astrology. For example, Sun in the house of Aquarius. So now that we've got that out of the way, let's move forward. So extrovert, introvert. Now, intuitor and sensor. This is very interesting. About 30% of those here on Earth, our brethren, are intuitors. So my, N type. And 70% are sensors. What this means is, and this can be a little confusing, okay? It can be hard to differentiate between intuitor and then we'll get to the next type, feeler, thinker. Because there's a lot that correspond, especially between thinker and intuitor. But there is a very subtle, actually there's quite a bit of differences that we'll get to. But as a whole, intuitors are more interested in the abstract, in ideas, in formulating patterns and moving forward into unknown territory. S, sensor, and intuitor really comes down to how we perceive information. So it's kind of like our Mercury energy in a sense. And we'll be talking a lot more about the different parallels. This is just an intro to this system because I want to share this with you and I want other people to know their types. And this is what's really great about the MBTI system is for those who don't understand astrology or find it too complicated, which is fine. There's a lot of people who just not, they may know their sun sign, their moon sign, their rising sign. They may even know their entire chart, but it's just hard for them to, it's just not for them, just like advanced mathematics is not interesting to me, algebra and so on. There are people that just aren't that into tropical astrology or astrology in general. And so having this system, and especially for those people who are kind of weirded out because of some kind of religious dogma reason of, but astrology, the Bible says that. It's like, oh my gosh. Astrology is a psychological system. It has nothing to do with religion. It's not trying to tell you, this is God. No, it's a psychological, it's psychology and astronomy linked. That's what it is. You have the hard data of astronomy. You have it measured out mathematically to the utmost precision of the equinoxes and the solstices and how those guiding points, which have been used for thousands upon thousands of years by humanity to understand basically what the different seasons are, extrapolated to utilizing the goals and the tools of psychology, the intangible of observation, of seeking to understand the patterns of behavior and thought. This system, astrology is not trying to tell you how to live your life. It gives wonderful suggestions because it gives insight into self. But it's not saying worship me or anything like that. But in any case, all right. The MBTI system is really wonderful for those individuals who just can't quite grasp that concept. And so instead of saying your sun in this, moon in that, them going, I have all this repressed guilt and my spirituality was very much perverted by religious dogma, so now I don't even know if I can check that out because that would make me feel bad because then somebody else told me how to not do that kind of stuff. Anyways, you don't even have to get into that. With the MBTI system, it is basically pure psychology. There is no astronomical data here. And although obviously that gives it a weakness in a sense of not being as astronomically precise as tropical astrology, you're not able to break down the exact nature of a person's psyche in so many different beautifully, interestingly precise ways. It makes it more palatable and it makes it more easy to grasp all these different, even just knowing your type and knowing the 4 different polarities, and we'll get to the other 2 in some moments. That is a lot easier to grasp for a lot of people. So there's an ease of accessibility. Now what's beautiful is there's also depth to this though. There's a lot of different layers. You have those 4 functions per each sign, as I mentioned before, but then you have the shadow functions as well, which I myself am just starting to discover and to explore and look into. But yes, as a whole, this system it offers a lot that tropical astrology doesn't. And it's worth studying in my opinion. So in any case, back to intuitors. As I was saying before, intuitors are random. We are intangible, and because as such, even to other intuitors, although not so much, but especially to sensors who are more physical, they notice what's right around them and they go off of past experience and whatnot. Intuitors can seem crazy or can seem totally out there or ingenious or all of the above. Indeed, it's usually all of the above. Because what makes this so eccentric and so unique and so interested in understanding also makes us a little, out there, hard to understand, quirky, and sometimes is weird, or or genuinely just crazy. If not in general, then for a time, usually for a time, because we just go crazy us intuitors until we finally find what we're looking for, and then it all clicks, and we go, ah. Unless, of course, there's some kind of mental illness, then that's a whole other story. But that's not only us intuitors who can suffer from that anyway. So, in any case, 30% of the world are intuitors. So, as a whole, the way this world's psychologically set up through the lens of the MBTI system is the sensors. As I said before, those who work with their hands, their senses more than anything, who are able to spot what needs fixing, what needs repairing, what needs getting done and built, whereas opposed to the intuitors looking at what could be, what should be in a sense, in an abstract sense, what the potential is. The majority of this world is sensors, and honestly, and I'm speaking as an intuitive here, thank God, because I know how impractical I can be in my pursuit of knowledge and understanding and wisdom and creative growth. And I mean, my main focuses in life are astrology and psychology and esoteric metaphysical practices in general, as you well have noticed. Music, also an intangible, although I do love the sensor bit of playing the instrument and whatnot and understanding it in the sense of brick and mortar notes and whatnot, but still it's an intangible thing. And language, and again, there's a censored part of that, grammar and words and whatnot, but at the end of the day, it's an intangible. So thank God that we have both. There's no one more important than the other. There's no one type out there more important than the other. Just like in astrology, there is no one energy more important than the other. We all have challenges and gifts. It's really the same thing, as per tropical astrology, because for those who've been following my channel for a while, you know how I'm always have been a proponent of we're all equal, truly, and we all are a part of this world. We all need each other. We need this system to work. We need each cog in the system to work. And so the sensors are the ones who get shit done. They make shit happen. Usually, not always, and we'll get into there again. It's hard to generalize about 16 different types at once, but in a general kind of way, the intuitors more often than not are the ones who provide the idea, who provide the blueprint, the inspiration, the guidance in one way or another. And you got thinking intuitors, you got feeling intuitors, you have more orderly judgmental, and that's not a bad thing, judgmental. We'll get to that later. It's another one of the four EINSFTPJ judger, and we'll go into that more in depth. I know I'm everywhere. I'm an ENFP. Please forgive me for being scattered. But that is who I am. We'll get to all the information eventually. There's all sorts of intuitors, just like there's all sorts of sensors. There's all sorts of sensors in the sense of thinking sensors and feeling sensors and judging, perceiving, introvert, extrovert. We all are this wonderful mix. And what's really interesting is the world functions. Though certainly it has its dysfunctional parts, we have survived as a species to this part. And that's pretty fucking amazing. Looking at this last century, let alone maybe even last decade or so. But this last century, and let alone millennia and all of human history, we're here. So who knows if this was the exact proportion over time, or if maybe we had more intuitors in this time, or more of this particular kind of sensor in that time, who knows. But in any case, it's interesting to note that, yes, this 30 to 70% exists, and that also there are certain, in a general note, there are certain types that are far more present, even amongst the sensors, for example. I think the ISTJ type, for example, is, I think there's about 11%, 12%. Go ahead and Google that if you're interested in the exact percentage, which I'm sure you are if you're an ISTJ. Or Yeah, whereas ESFP, I think, is like 7%, 8%. And so for both intuitors and sensors, for every single type, there's a different predominance of how many of that type there is. And it's interesting to note that INFJ, supposedly, and I think this is very true, the rarest type, which is just about 1% of the population, is the most mistyped. That a lot of people think, oh, I'm INFJ, when in fact they're ISFJ or INFP or whatever. That's very interesting. But anyways, again, hopping all over the damn place. Back to sensors and intuitors. Sensors, as I said before, are, thank God, the vast majority of this planet. It can be a little challenging in that sense, and for us intuitors, that can be very frustrating. Of how do you not see the idea? How do you not see this intangible thing that I witness because that is my gift? I'm not good with building shit. I'm not good with, making constructive, pragmatic decisions and/or projects happen. But I'm gifted with this. How do you not see this? It can take a while for the intuitors' ideas, concepts, philosophies, morals, etc., that they are so geared towards, to be accepted by sensors, to be understood by sensors. And that's not really the sensors' fault. The intuitors need to understand that sensors are merely operating from how they know reality, how they are, what they find important, how they understand, how they prioritize. And indeed, can you really blame them? Because no, you can't blame them for who they are. But also, consider this, dear intuitors, some of those who may find themselves in an ivory tower of no one understands me. There's a lot of ideas that intuitors have that just don't make sense. And so it's not just a matter of understanding their brain, understanding where they're coming from, and having all the tools of knowledge that they have. It's a matter of that really genuinely is not a good idea. Okay? So that's what this beautiful interplay of sensor and intuitor back and forth is on this planet, is we check each other, we encourage each other, we need each other. And without intuitors, this world would fall apart. Without sensors, this world would fall apart. We really do need each other. And this goes for astrological understanding as well. Without even one sign, without even one particular, say, Mercury energy, this world would fall apart. We need every single part of the puzzle. This is how it is. It's not some kind of, oh, we need to all unite in hippie unity. It's not. It's a fucking fact. We really do all need each other, or else one part of society falls apart. Say Mercury and Scorpio, for example. Now that comprises a lot of different professions, but just to generalize, deeper psychological, deeper biological understanding, deeper detective work, deeper. There's a lot of cops with that. People who are able to deal with the traumatic nature of life. So a lot of doctors. A lot of insurance individuals, when loss occurs. Without that energy, imagine a world without teachers. Imagine a world without, we can't, we can't have a world without any particular energy, without any particular type. Okay, so anyways, moving on to feeler and thinker. I'm such an ENFP. I struggled with this concept at first because I am an ENFP, and yes, I'm an intuitor, and in a sense, this can be tricky. In a sense, N and T are similar, but they're also very different. Thinking and intuiting, I find the difference is intuiting kind of brings into the fold of its definition the Neptune vibration, the Uranus vibration, these vibrations of not just coming up with ideas for ideas' sake. That's more thinking in the MBTI system. It's more about dreaming up potential. It's more about seeing the whole as opposed to the parts. And thinking in the MBTI system could really go either way. Thinking is more just that function of logical procession. Not so much its goal, or not so much what feeds that logical perception. So if somebody is a EST, for example, ESTP, ESTJ, they're a sensor and a thinker, they're not necessarily going to be a deep philosophical thinker. That's going to be an ENTP or an ENTJ, for example. ENTJ, not so much. Maybe an INTJ. ENTJs, we'll get into that, but they're more focused on working with other people and stuff. Although they certainly can be, as an intuitor in general, that kind of philosophical being. So that can be difficult, and especially for example, I'm an ENFP, and let alone the N part, that intuitor, that more abstract and ideating, coming up with ideas, which is associated with this verb, this understanding of thinking. Even with that, I kind of struggle with that. I was like, well, but I think all the damn time. I'm a Gemini, Mercury, Gemini, Sun, and Mercury in the house of Aquarius. How am I an ENFP? And I do understand, looking at the different definitions, that yes, I'm definitely ENFP, but something's missing, and that has to do with the functions. Okay, so ENFPs, for example, as I said before, I have 4 functions, just like all the types do: dominant, auxiliary, tertiary, inferior. The tertiary for ENFP is external thinking, and so don't get too caught up on thinking or feeling thinking that if you are one, you're not the other. Oh, I'm a thinker, I don't have emotions. Oh, I'm a feeler, I'm not logical at all. No, it's not that at all. The different functions are again, it's a wonderful tapestry that this system has to offer us in understanding. And again, I have to say this because tropical astrology is so just goddamn useful that there are certain areas that I want to say MBTI is wrong, but it just doesn't cover it to the kind of depth that astrology does, right? Tropical astrology. But in any case, just to give an example, INTJ, right? So an intuitor, a thinker, right? Their primary is internal intuition, and we'll talk about these in more in depth later on. External thinking, internal feeling. And so their tertiary is a feeling. Indeed, that's usually how it happens. Now, it depends on each of the types. I think there's 8 types that this doesn't apply for, but they do have the other feeling or thinking somewhere in there, even if it's the inferior and what doesn't come naturally to them, what they have to work on. It's still, that potential is there, and we can always, just like in tropical astrology, if there's an energy that we don't have but that we wish to learn from and gain from, and to incorporate that knowledge and that wisdom and those actions into our life, that's possible. We can always do that with conscious awareness and free will. Okay, we don't have to feel confined by psychological understanding systems. Okay, so but yeah, just like I was saying before, it's good to not get too wrapped up in what those 4 letters are, ENFP for example, to not get too wrapped up in that, because there are these other functions that exist, and we can always integrate those other functions that we wish we had. Okay, so moving all right, so feeling and thinking, it really comes down to, and there's about 50% of the population either way, it really comes down to, are you more a practical I think of it this way: feelers are the fire and water individuals, and thinkers are the air and earth individuals. So again, just because you're a thinker, that doesn't make you necessarily a philosophical thinker. You could be an extremely practical thinker. And just because you're a feeler, that doesn't mean that you are only operating from body sensations and feelings like an SF would. And there's a lot of great things about SF, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that they're irrational. They have their own beautiful functions, perfect example, or beautiful qualities, and they have their thinking functions, perfect example. ESFP, much like ENFP, has the tertiary function of external thinking. And again, I know this can be confusing. We're throwing around all sorts of terms that you haven't heard before, potentially, if you have no knowledge of this system. And even if you do, there's all these layers. But with study, you can understand it. And I really recommend that you take the test. That's what this is all. I'm sorry, I should have said that at the beginning. Take the MBTI test. It's free. There's a lot of different options online. Check out your type. See what it says. What I really love is the resource 16 personalities. I think .com, maybe .org. I don't know. But check out all the different types out there if you really want to get in depth. But really check out your type and explore, because this stuff is so beautifully useful, I find. And I think if we had a world, tropical astrology is a bit complex. I don't know if everybody in the world can, maybe that we can get on board with like sun, moon, and rising, yeah. But when it comes to the MBTI system, that's something that we could all really share quickly without any kind of weird dogma and bias getting in the way, and to vibe off of really nicely and to understand quickly. Oh, you're an INTP? Oh, okay, great. Well, I will work with you in this way on this project. This is how we can work together. that is very possible if we know our types, and if we know even just a little bit about other types. And if you're like me and you love psychological systems, you can explore all of it and just fucking go to town. Then do videos and offer perspectives for people to dig. But as I was saying before, so many different threads. Forgive me again, ENFP all over the place. Yeah, I really recommend you check it out. Yeah. So going back to feeling and thinking, I think that pretty much covers. Something. Let's talk about some good stuff real quick about the SF individuals. These are the individuals that, as opposed to NF, I'm an ENFP. One of my really great brothers in life is an ESFP, the type I mentioned before, and we lived together just recently, actually, for just over a year. And it's nice how to be around a feeler, and this doesn't just apply to my type and me as an individual. This applies to everyone. That particular type is a great example of how SF individuals can be considerate of others, that feeling, that compassion, caring for others, and to be practical as well. So they're able to connect with others in ways that, for example, an NF can't, or find it difficult to. At least they can go and just have fun and connect with people immediately and not get and just have like smooth conversation going back and forth. Whereas an NF, for example, like me, is more interested in that and ideals and deeper stuff, and that can throw off some people. And so SFs are wonderful at kind of marrying a lot of these different types that are out there, and in a I don't mean like literally marrying, but like getting these people together and to enjoy themselves and to come out of their shell a little bit, even if they're the most introverted intuitive thinker, or the most extrovert sensing thinker or feeler or whatever. So that's, again, every type has its place. Okay. All right, resolving this video. Perceiver, judger. I am a perceiver bar none. A perceiver is one who doesn't like routine, who doesn't like order. That doesn't mean to say that we're trying to blow up the world's order or anything. No, in fact, I'm extremely grateful for all of the individuals out there, and indeed all the people in my life that are judgers, because they have routines. They actually get shit done. They pay the bills, thank God. They make sure that everything functions smoothly and on time, whereas perceivers are all over the place. And again, we need each other. I'm not trying to say judgers are better, because perceivers are able to work outside of routine and let inspiration guide us, or whatever it is that we're interested in guide us. For an ENFP, for example, I love learning random shit and diving into it 100%, and that's why I need a lot of free time in my schedule to be able to do that, because otherwise I'm not happy, because I'm not reaching my fullest potential, and I'm not offering what I have to offer to the universe, to the collective, to all of us. Because only with that free time am I able to not only study astrology, but study language and study MBTI systems and study music, and it all kind of ties together in weird ways that's hard to explain. But it takes both of these types to get the world going and to keep it flowing together functionally. You got the judgers making sure everything is on time, works together, no bullshit. And the perceivers, I'm not trying to say perceivers, there's bullshit, but what I'm trying to say is the perceivers are more open-ended. We don't like deadlines. We like it to happen when it's inspired to happen. And there's merits to both. We both need each other, because judgers are extremely effective in a lot of ways, in a steady kind of way, but perceivers are extremely effective too. We can understand patterns that judgers can't, because judgers are too mired in their routine, or they don't have the time to explore these things, nor the inclination, nor even the understanding of, or the ability to function in this kind of more free-flowing way. And so that's where a perceiver comes in, because we're the ones who are like, oh, hell yeah, I'll study all this random shit for you. That's what I fucking love to do. Or yeah, I'll be that random independent contractor. I'm an SP, ESFP. I'll do these random jobs for you. I love to do random shit, and use my body in random ways. We need perceivers and judgers. And so, just to wrap up this video, there might be another type that you really identify with. For example, I really identify with ENTP, but I am an ENFP. I think my feeling is like 56% or so. Maybe it's like 60%, something like that. But I recommend finding that other type that you really feel connected with. And this is my friend Marcos gave me a really great tidbit of information. Thank you, INTP brother. Going from right to left, it's a lot more variable. So, okay, let me explain that. It's a very intuitive statement. ENFP, right? Going from right to left, usually people can really identify with the type that is, for example, instead of ENFP, like me, instead of a perceiver, judger, ENFJ. Now, in my particular case, as I said, I feel more in tune with ENTP, but that too, that's just the second letter in this order, the third letter in this order. Going from right to left, it's the second letter. So it's a lot less likely, and indeed I think it invites reflection if you find yourself, oh, well, I'm both introvert and extrovert. Well, maybe you're an ambivert sign, like ENFP, for example. Yes, we're extroverted, but we need a lot of time to ourselves. And there are certain introverted signs, INFJ, for example, that really thrives, especially as life goes on later on in life, thrives on collaborating with others and communicating. And so can seem like an extrovert, but is actually an introvert. I really invite you to reflect on, in general, on what type you are after taking this test and exploring at least a little bit. Just get a little tidbit for each of the other types, just to get an idea of who's out there. It's very exciting. And thinking, what kind of friend do I need? Like, what type is great for me in particular as a friend, as a lover, as a, etc., as a coworker, a colleague, partner, whatever. So yeah, going from right to left, it's a lot more variable usually. So it's very unlikely that somebody connects with either I, or like right in between E and I, or N and S, intuitor and sensor. But hey, who knows? I don't know all the answers. I'm just an ENFP trying to figure my way through the universe, slowly but surely. So yeah, that's all I have to share for this. For this series, I will be including videos for each of the different 16 types, going in depth for their functions, what types would be very good for them, what types are a little bit challenging. That might be a whole nother video because I want to keep these pretty condensed. I know I talk for forever, but there's so much I'm excited to talk about, so much information to share. I don't know exactly how I'm going to do this. I guess I'll probably end up having to, definitely at some point down the line, doing type compatibilities. But at least in the individual ones, I'll talk about some of the ones that really function well with that particular type. So yeah, I hope you join me on this journey. These videos are going to be out there, and so I hope that you enjoy them. I'm going to be, as always, only doing them when I feel inspired and when I feel like all the information is coalesced. And I do think that it's going to be pretty steady, though, because as opposed to, say, the Sun Sign Compatibility series, which I'm also going to be working on this year, I've already done a lot of this research and a lot of this studying. So it's kind of just on reflecting, putting it all together, and then letting it all flow out. So one other video series that comes to mind for in the MBTI overall series is I want to do about the 4 different families. I'll probably move on to that after this one, which is, for example, the NFs are said to be have a certain sort of set of characteristics. The NTs, and then the SFs and the STs are like split half and half in one family or the other. So yeah, that'll be the next video I do, I think, for this. And then I'll go into the individuals, and we'll do compatibility, and shit, whatever else comes from there. I don't fucking know. Infinite love to you, my friends. I really hope that you share this journey with me. It's an exciting one, and it's going to be a lot of fun, I think. And it'll be exciting to talk about this stuff with other people who just aren't into tropical astrology for whatever reason. Namaste.